So I want you to use hashtag Raiders to get your comments, your questions on air. We'll go through as many as we possibly can. So make sure that you're using hashtag Raiders, or you can super chat, because that might be the other best way to get on the show. So Jermaine, with a mouthful of a last name, get a pick. We want Cory Littleton. So I tweeted out that it's really hard to tweet with your fingers crossed, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed until we get Cory Littleton, because we already went out today, got Nick Kwiatkowski, who I think is going to be a little bit more of a middle linebacker, solid pass rusher. And if you want to pair Kwiatkowski with a great linebacker, I actually think Littleton and Kwiatkowski would be a great 1-2 combo. You put Littleton on the outside linebacker, basically where, Tahir played a little bit last year. And Littleton, I'll say, is the best coverage linebacker in free agency right now. And then you have Kwiatkowski, who can rush the passer, who can also play that middle linebacker role. If you're telling me I could get both of those players, man, I'm telling you what right now, I would be totally on board for that. So, yes, we want Littleton. And if you want Littleton, let's get some L's in the comments section. What up, Sean? Any word on Chris Harris? Any news on Chris Harris? Not really. But I will say this. I think now that Harris is the number one free agent target at the cornerback position for the Raiders, or you could be looking at a player like Trey Waynes, could also be an option there. But the fact that Byron Jones signed a 5-year, $82.5 million deal with the Dolphins, or agreed to a deal with the Dolphins for $82.5, $57 million guaranteed, makes me think now 31-year-old Chris Harris is probably the top option for the Raiders at cornerback. What up, Rich? Trade for A.J. Green. So I know a lot of people like A.J. Green, and I know it was a player that we talked about a bunch during our free agency segments, but for me, I don't want to go out and trade for a player who I can't give a physical to, right? I mean, right now with the whole Gobert situation, A.J. Green didn't play last year. Yes, there is no doubt when he's on the field he's super talented, but you're going to have to probably give up, I don't know. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins did basically go for a second today, so anything's possible. But you're going to have to pay A.J. Green a lot of money. Plus, you're going to have to give up some draft capital. With as deep as what the draft is this year, I'd rather just invest in the draft and let A.J. Green go. Let's go to Machines of God. Mitch, your shirt is awesome. When will you be able to buy shirts like that? I'd buy one for Chucky Heads, believe it, baby. I think that's more of a question for the bosses. So if anybody wants the For Chucky Head shirt, DM me on Instagram, @MitchellRenz365. We'll see if we can cook up something for you. So we'll do our best. But appreciate you. Appreciate everyone who watches the show. There's also a back. It says Believe It Baby on the back. So with the number 4, wonder if I can, here, you know what? It's my show. I can do what I want. Believe It Baby. So we'll try to get some shirts out. We'll try to see what we can do there. We'll talk to the bosses here at Chat Sports. Let's go to the next question, if I can get my suit on. What do we got? Comment? Cool. Had number 4, will the Raiders trade Derek Carr? I want you to give me a 4 for yes. Give me a 0 for no. If you want to be an overachiever and you want to let me know why you're voting for what, please do it. I always appreciate that. We have Sean. He says 0. Mike says 0. Jason Bates says 4. Antonio says 0. Here come the votes. Woo! Macia says 0. I'm seeing some 4s from a lot of other people now. Oh, boy. 4 for 2 says 4. Kelly Nicholson, 4. Let's see what else we got here. Sean Sheppard, why are the Dolphins doing us dirty? Very true. Alex, Kelly, Effa, they're all going to say 4. Let me know then who you would want or what you would want in return from Derek Carr, because I would rather, that whole, what am I trying to say? If the Raiders are going to trade him, I want at least a second-round pick, so that's something to take note of. Let's go to Jason Bates here. Would you consider trading DC to the Bears for a second-round pick, then trade up for a Simmons? So that would give the Raiders then, I put this idea out there before, and I asked the nation, would you take 2 second-round picks for Derek Carr? And it was pretty split, 50-50. I mean, if the Raiders go out and they get a second-round pick, so the Bears' picks are 43 and 50. If we have a 12 and 19, let's say 43, and then 3 third-round picks, it would be intriguing. However, I don't think that one's going to happen. But would I take a second-round pick for DC? I'm going to say no. Personally, I'm going to say no. Let's go to Sean. What up, Sean? Why the Dolphins doing us dirty? So I don't know if you're talking about the whole Byron Jones, getting his 5-year, $82.5 million deal. I did see this, and I'm glad I was going to put this in the... So, Mike Garafolo, this just came out. More on, the details about the Dolphins and Byron Jones. So, apparently, the Raiders offered Byron Jones a huge deal as well, and sources say the Raiders offered more money per year than the Dolphins, but we often focus on that metric. But in the case, Miami's offer was much more front-loaded. He gets $40 million over the first 2 years. So from what it sounds like, the Raiders offered Byron Jones more money per year, but the Dolphins were willing to give him more money up front. So therefore, he goes to the Miami Dolphins, where he's going to get $40 million the first 2 years, but $57 guaranteed. So I know a lot of people were wondering, why didn't the Raiders maybe look into getting Jones? They were very active in getting Jones, but from what it sounds like, it looks like the Dolphins were willing to give him more money up front, which is pretty interesting considering the fact that he, from what it sounds like, would have made more money per year if he would have signed with the Las Vegas Raiders. Byron, I'll be honest, I think you're going to regret that playing for Miami instead of Las Vegas. I'm just saying. Let's go to Abram. Mitch, do you think we're going to get a free agent wide receiver? I think we could go out and potentially get a cheaper free agent wide receiver. Like, I know Emmanuel Sanders, he's still out there. I know some people, heck, Amari Cooper, he's still out there. If I'm thinking about what the Raiders potentially are going to do, the cheaper option for me, I look at players like a Laquan Treadwell, who, yes, isn't the best receiver, but he can block, and I know Mike Mayock really liked Treadwell when he first came out of Ole Miss. I'll give you a sleeper name. I'll give you a name. You could look at a player like Brashad Perriman. He's a deep threat, which I know they definitely want to add. Maybe even a Tajay Sharp. Mike Mayock was really, really high on Tajay Sharp when he first came out of the draft as well. I still think that this team really wants to invest, though, in wide receivers in the draft. For you, everyone watching, if you bleed silver and black, now's your chance to subscribe to the #1 YouTube channel for all Raiders content. I am this close to getting to 40K subscribers. When I hit 10K, I dyed my hair. When we did 20, I gave tickets away for Monday Night Football. 30K, we did Edward 40 hands on my Instagram. I don't know what I'm going to do for 40K yet, but I do know this. I'm going to continue to make videos every single day because I do think it's important during the offseason and during this whole Go Bear situation that you guys get content. So I'm going to continue to do my best to make sure that you're up to date and at least entertained. Hit that subscribe button. Let's go to Yogurt Milk. I've never seen this name on my channel. Do you subscribe? What other positions should we sign in free agency? I mean, if I'm the Raiders, I'm looking at safety, right? I mean, you could let Carl Joseph, obviously he's testing the market, could potentially bring him back. You could also look at a sneaky name there in a Trey Boston. He's a player to keep in mind. I would say, though, it's cornerback and it's linebacker. Those are right now our two biggest needs. You could also see them maybe going out and getting a Malik Collins at defensive tackle, a DJ Reader potentially also, since the Texans aren't going to bring him back. The Raiders have major needs at defensive line, but for me, I want them to invest in defense. Defense. Let's go to Victor. What up, Vic? Cornerback in the draft, maybe trade up for Jeff Okudah. So I think if you're going to go up and get Jeff Okudah, you're probably going to have to get up into that 3-4 range. And I like Jeff Okudah a lot. I know John Gruden asked him, are you from planet Earth, because he's that much of a freak athlete. But if we're going to trade up for Jeff Okudah, I would rather the Raiders trade up for Isaiah Simmons, because I think it's going to cost just about the exact same. And I think Isaiah Simmons fills a lot more of my needs. But, I mean, hey, if Jeff Okudah somehow slides a little bit and maybe the Raiders trade up and Isaiah Simmons is gone, it'd be interesting. But for me, I'd rather trade up for Isaiah Simmons. Let's go Ricardo E. Now that the Cowgirls tagged Prescott, if Cooper leaves, do you think that they will keep Byron Jones? So Byron Jones has gone to the Miami Dolphins for 5 years, $82.5, $57 guaranteed. Also important to note, the Raiders did try to get Byron, but he chose the Dolphins and the front-loaded contract over the Raiders. The interesting thing is what's going to happen now with Amari, who is the top free agent wide receiver, but I think we can all agree, I don't want Amari Cooper. Let's go to 87, J-Rod 1. With these defensive signings that may happen, does this mean the Raiders will draft a receiver at 12? Oh, and screw it. The winners for the 13th pick. And the Niners for that 13th pick. So, I know, Whiners, Niners, I can't read. I also can read. Oh my gosh. Ron Burgundy, it way too hard. So the 49ers, they made a move today. They shipped away Buckner, and they got the 13th pick. I want the Raiders to hang on to the 12th pick. I really, really do. And I think if the Raiders are going to move any picks, I think it's the most likely is the 19th pick where they could potentially trade back and maybe acquire an early second and a late first from a team that's looking to trade up. I think that's a little bit more likely. So 87 J-Rod 1. Hopefully that answers your question. Let's go to James. James, everyone in the comments, tell James what he needs to do. Come on, do it. Every single person tell James what he needs to do. Speaking of James, kind of sounds like it. Jamie Collins, he's headed to the Lions, 3 years, $30 million. So there's another kind of stand-up linebacker, if you will, that the Raiders will not be able to get. When will we address our cornerback issues? Either in the draft. I would say the draft is a potential. You could look at like a C.J. Henderson, I think is a player who really dominated at the Combine, and I know the Raiders are high on. But in terms of free agency, I mean, I've made videos on the top free agent targets at the cornerback position that the Raiders could go out and get. Right now, for me, it's probably between Trey Waynes and Chris Harris. I would say probably the most two likely cornerbacks, big-name quarterbacks the Raiders could go out and get. Let's go to Michael. What up, Mike? What do you think of Chase Claypool, the big receiver from Notre Dame? Claypool's interesting to me, and I think he's kind of similar, not quite as athletic as an Evan Ingram, but he was a clear Combine winner. He's a player that I talked about here on the Raiders Report as well. I think if the Raiders go out and get Claypool, I don't really know if they use him as much as a wide receiver, and maybe you're a Notre Dame fan. I think Claypool is going to be kind of like a more swing tight end than a true wide receiver in the NFL. That's how I think he profiles the best, but let's get one thing straight. Claypool and Calvin Johnson are the only two players to ever do the NFL Combine over, I believe, 235 pounds at the wide receiver position to run under a 4.45 40. I believe that's the stat. I believe that's it. Let's go to Sean. Looking a lot like the Joker. Trade pick 19 for Darius Slay. I'm going to actually say no to that. And the reason why I'm going to say no to that is because if you're going to bring in Darius Slay, you're also going to have to give him $16 million, $15-16 million in my opinion. For me, that's not what I want to go out and pay Slay. I'd rather hold on to pick 19. And if you really, really want to spend big in free agency at the cornerback position, I'll say this. I think you hold on to your money and you go out and try to get Jalen Ramsey, who has said before that he has wanted to be a Raider. So I like the idea of Darius Slay. He's been a good corner, but when I think about the future of this team, Darius Slay is not the future of the Raiders. So I'm going to hang on to pick 19.
Raider Nation, what's going on? Is this the #1 Raiders channel on YouTube? For Chucky Heads, believe it, baby. And if you haven't already, subscribe right here. I'm giving you Chucky Heads, news, rumors, Raider Nation rumors. And look at this. I'm making your life easier. Check out my next video. Thanks for watching, and go Raiders.